The Twitchiest community has earned themselves a $1,000 bonus giveaway by reaching all of our goals with Guardian Tales. So go ahead and check out the description down below to go get your entries. The more ways you enter, the better your chances to win the $1,000, and keep your eyes out for opportunities in the future to earn more cash giveaways for the Twitchiest community. Hello everybody, and welcome to your Muzen Cobb ADC guide action. So we're going to be starting off with a blue stone pendant, moving our way into that transcendence. Grab a health pot and a multi-pot for the sustain and lane. And of course, we are going to need our beads. AMC is not particularly meta right now. He's definitely in the... doesn't have a movement ability in a very, very long lane. Kind of predicament that like Artemis and other gods are in. So he does tend to need a little bit of extra help in the laning phase. He does have great clear, great damage, but your positioning with the B needs to be quite good. And you also need to be pretty confident in hitting your ultimate, which is basically the make or break ability for AMC. If you can hit it consistently, he becomes a way better character because of the way that it resets basically upon being able to pick it up. So for our first ability, we are going to go ahead and grab our 2. This is going to be our main form. PvP damage of PvE damage is going to be the ability that we max out first. This is going to do a bunch of damage in a line, and it is going to apply bees to people. For all intents and purposes, bees is just you do damage and you're going to get extra damage on AMC. You get them all up in your abilities, you get them all up in your honey, all sorts of stuff. You're going to get this little bit of extra bonus damage. On top of that, that little bonus bees damage is nice. Normally, but it's also super nice in AMC because we have this blue stone, which means we're getting bonus damage on the blue stone. We're going to get bonus damage from the bees. If we've got the honey on them, we'll have the honey being its own separate damage tick on them. So we can have a lot of different bleeds on somebody very quickly with the AMC. Level 2, I'm going to grab my honey because this is going to give us even more lane pressure. Now, you do have to apply the bees to the honey in order to get it to work. So just putting down my 3 is not going to do the damage there on the honey. You have to follow it up with an actual bees procer. In this case, my procer of bees is going to be the utilization of my 2. The swarm, but if the honey is in the range of a hive, it will go ahead and apply those bees right away. So you won't even have to worry about it. It will simply apply immediately. So if you are just in the general vicinity of the honey to the bees, it will be just a fine and a dandy. So for wave clearing, we're mostly going to be throwing out our 3 right on into our 2, and that's gonna just about full clear the wave. Gotta back up, get myself tier 2 boots. I almost always finish boots on AMC first. And that's because he does not have a built-in movement ability. And without that, you are very, very susceptible to ganks. I have also gone a little bit greedy this game and got a second point in my 2. Instead of getting that point in my hive, those hives will make us a lot harder to kill, particularly in the later stages of the game when we really get ranked up. But I wanted a little bit more damage on the burst in the early game with my swarm. So we can have up to 7 hives out on the board. So if I go ahead and use my hive right here and then use my honey, you can see that little applicator go. And now the honey is gonna clear that way for me, mostly by itself, even though it only has 1 point in it. So we can basically put these hives all over the place because we can have up to 7 of them up. And these hives are going to do actually a lot of good stuff for us. One, it's going to give us movement speed and attack speed. That's the most important. But it's also going to give us a little bit of HP 5 while we are in the range. It's technically not HP 5. It's actually a little bit better than HP 5. It's just flat healing. But for all intents and purposes, it is conceptually HP 5. So at level 5, we're going to grab our ultimate. That means the official level order for the Muzen Cobb is going to be 4-2. You got to rank up that ultimate in the 2 whenever you can. You're going to increase those damage markers. You're going to reduce the cooldown on your sword. And then you have an option. Some players like to rank up the honey 3rd in order to get the extra damage and slow from the honey. I am more of a hive guy. I like to have the extra movement speed, attack speed, particularly with the frequency of getting ganked. I like to have the movement speed to try and stay alive. So typically I go 4-2-1-3. But if you're feeling pretty confident, if you're not getting ganked a lot, you can go 4-2-3-1. Both are viable. Good pluck right there from our Sobek. He's going to have the bleed on him, so he's going to be coming out. And because he's standing still, I'm going to use my ultimate and not have to worry about missing it at all. So the big thing about AMC, 1, we got a lot of bleeds. Bluestone bleed, check. Honey bleed, check. Bees, check. Our swarm going out and doing damage, check. Lots of bleeds, fantastic. But our ultimate is everything on AMC. If you hit them with it, you can see it's a really skinny guy. Really skinny, but luckily it travels quite fast. So it's actually not as hard to hit as you would think. Think of it kind of like a Thanatos scythe. I would say that's the closest thing to how I aim it. Meaning that typically you don't want to be necessarily looking directly at the target. A lot of the times you could want to do a little flick motion so they're not kind of just sitting there juking side to side. And if you go pick up your stinger, after your stinger hits the target, it's going to take a couple of seconds. And if the target either dies or if they just live for a couple more seconds, the stinger will pop out of them. And then you will be able to go pick it up, significantly reducing the cooldown. I do believe it's 80%. 80% when you go pick up that stinger. Now, do not go into a position where you're going to die in order to pick up the stinger. As much fun as it is to run into the tier 2 to go pick up the stinger, you're not going to want to do that. Because if you die, it doesn't matter how low the cooldown is on stinger. Now you got to wait on the cooldown of your respawn. So it is never worth to die to pick up your stinger. It is often worth to maybe take a little bit of poke in order to pick it up. If you take a little bit of damage, couple of autos, that's oftentimes worth it to get that ulti back up because you're going to be able to utilize it for even more damage than you took. But do not try to sacrifice your life if you're like, that's too risky. Just let it go on the cooldown. Also keep in mind that your stinger is a cripple. So for that duration that it is on the enemy, it will be crippling them. So no movement abilities for them. So it's sometimes not an ability you necessarily want to use right off the bat. A lot of times you actually want to hold on to that stinger until somebody's closer to 3/4 halfway down in their HP. And then once you get to that point, then you can actually use the ultimate because they will be trying to jump and get away, and now they can't.
Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower.
So right now I'm going to be utilizing my hives for their vision. We've got a couple of good wards out, but I also want to get the vision from the hives. Reminder that if the enemy walks right on top of those hives, it's got to be pretty close, but they do act as little wards, which is very helpful, of course, for AMC because he doesn't have a getaway skill. So try to place those out if you can at key spots as well. It doesn't matter if your hives are overlapping. It just means you'll have a little bit less total space that is being covered by hive. But you can have 7 of them out and people are going to be killing them all the time. So it doesn't really matter if you're just constantly replacing them. It only costs 40 mana to get those out in the world as well. So pretty cheap on the mana cost front. Now I am slightly outside of my... Oh, my hive's right there. I got to be a little bit careful. I imagine he is this money. Dollar bill right here. He is. Unfortunately, I cannot quite reach him with my slow, and now I got to be careful because I am too far forward. So I'm just gonna go ahead, back it up, and grab myself the Transcendence. Of course, the Hunter build right now pretty standard across the entire, pretty much across all the Hunters. You're going to be almost always starting off with the Bluestone right now. This is probably going to change for a lot of Hunters in the next patch. I expect to see a lot of Hunter's Cow. Hunter's Cow is getting a MP5 buff, which is basically its one weakness. So I expect to see a lot of Hunter's Cow being bought during the next patch. But some characters like AMC, like Chiron, are almost guaranteed to still go Bluestone just because of all the early game pressure that they can output with it. But for those that have less good, less easily applicable damaging abilities, there's a good chance you're going to see those switch over to the good old cow. Now, he has ultied in on the Danza, so that should basically be a free kill for us. Unfortunately, he's actually going to get plucked away, so now I need to be a little bit careful. Soul's got so much damage. I'm going to try to slow him down a little bit. I actually don't think I'm going to be able to get out of this one, so I'm just going to try to turn around and grab as much damage, see if I can get a quick kill. I'm not going to be able to. Just no escaping that soul damage. Now we're going to work our way into our C.
Another Patriot has fallen.
So AMC actually does really well at 2 stages of the game. He does really well in the ultra early. The Bluestone Honey combo really lets him clear the way fast. So he can go for a lot of early game fights. So I do recommend pairing him with a kind of early game brawling support. I like the Sobex and the Ymirs, Yamoja, anybody that's like ready to go to town in the duo. But the other thing that AMC is actually pretty good at is the ultra late game. I would say the mid stage of the game is where he struggles the most. Right about now, I would say like that 10 to 20 minute marker, he is not in his primo strength levels. Early game, because of the clear, you get to go right for the fight. And then late game, once you get this hive all the way leveled up, once you get into your crit, you get a lot of power online by default, and then your hives are going to give you all this attack speed. Meaning that you're going to be at basically capped attack speed with a ton of power and a ton of crit. You've got a bunch of movement speed from these hives as well, up to 30%. So you're pretty hard to hit with both abilities and auto attacks. So I actually like AMC as a late game hunter and a early game hunter. It's just really that mid game where you're just trying to farm and lane and you're super susceptible to ganks, right? Like right now, if somebody walks over to me, I'm pretty much dead. I mean, I've got a lot of hives laid out all along the path. You should always make sure you've got hives basically all the way back to your tower. So that way, if you do need to run away, you can utilize that bonus movement speed all the way back to it. But in general, this is going to be the hardest stage of the game for you, where you're trying to run around and find farm without necessarily being able to go up and get it too far. We got a quick tower kill early on. I feel bad for this poor guy, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You were on my red buff. If it would have been your red buff, I would have left you alone, but it was our red buff. Now that I can get my Aussie, I'm going to back up, get my second active, which is, of course, going to be an Aegis this game. Grab the Aussie. Now we've actually got the build started. We can start looking for a little bit more engagement. Without the lifesteal online, the Hunter has definitely had a weaker stage of the game, but our Transcendence is almost stat, give us that nice CDR. Aussie for the lifesteal. Looking at their composition, they do have two pretty frontliney boys with the Cerberus and the Wukong. So depending on how much of them I see in the next couple of minutes, is going to depend on whether or not I go Executioner here for my fourth item, or if I go right into the Wind Demon for crit. Either way, the other item is going to be the one that you buy next. Wind Demon, typically better in the Hunter 1v1. As the next item, Executioner, typically better as the team fight item if you are breaking out into team fights at this stage of the game. So it's just gonna kind of depend where we are falling. I'm throwing out a little sentry over here on the gold. Back over to the duo lane. Let's check out what Danza has. Danza doesn't look like he's gotten into his Aussie yet, which means that I would love to take a 1v1 opportunity if I can find it. Always make sure you're checking the enemy's build, seeing how far along they are. And if you do have a couple item lead on them, try to take that fight.
Attack the God Fury.
You basically have a power play on them. Danza has gone back and finished that Aussie though. Now, if I can get Raw to come over this way towards me, we can just do this Gold Fury. I don't know. There you go. He's going to start coming this way. I've got the Sentry Ward on it. Looks like he's going to go hit up his red buff first. All we need is a little Raw Beamy Beam over here, and we can totally do this. This is going to get me down into my Aussie proc range. That's fine. Sobek come over to tank it. Between all of my Hives out for vision, my sustain from Aussie, I can do that. Without the sustain from Aussie there, I probably can't go for that play because the Gold Fury honestly just kills me before I actually get the gold online. So for the gods that we don't like to go against on AMC, believe it or not, because we don't have a leap or a movement ability, it's going to be walls. Cripples don't bother us at all because they don't affect us at all on AMC, so RDO, eat your heart out. But gods like Ymir in particular is super problematic. All of our escape skills are based around the fact that we're fast. Ymir walls is off. This makes us sad, and then he freezes us, and it turns out when you're frozen, you don't move very fast. So watch out for excessive stuns and knockups for preventing you from moving, and walls for taking you out of your escaping capabilities. So Ymir and Thor and Kabrak and Oh My, very annoying. Pretty much the same for all gods that don't have a leap, or in this case, even a dash. And then particularly for the AMC as well, a lot of hard CC is annoying for you because you really do rely on that movement. Now, wow, their Danza Burrow has absolutely gone for it. And I've already rotated over now. I thought some fight from breaking out, so I wanted to rotate over. Maybe I can grab ourselves a tier 2 in the mid lane. Doesn't actually look like he needs that much help with the Cerberus, so I'm actually just going to come get pressure on this mid lane. I'll take a little bit of damage over here. That's fine. Now I can turn around, go back and help out. Wukong looks like he's going to probably go down here as well. And we should be able to grab the mid T2. Normally we would go Fire Giant right here, but the Fire Giant isn't actually up yet. It is still the Scorpion, so we cannot go over and do that. For our standard combination, here on the beat, we're almost always going to be starting off our fight by putting down a Hive, unless there's already one down. To be honest, it's not a bad idea to have more than one down, just in case the enemy tries to kill your Hive. After the Hive is down, you're going to start off with your 3. This is going to get good bleed damage on the target, but more importantly, it's going to slow them, so it's easier for you to land your auto attacks. Then you're most likely just going to go into a giant chain of auto attacks. Use your 2, and when you feel like you are slightly out of range or your auto, or you got a couple of people in a row that you can hit with it. Finally, once your target is down to about that 75% to 50% marker, that's when you're looking to use your ultimate like this. Grab that kill, you can go pick it up, and then it's going to be back up before you know it. I'm going to use my honey to slow him down a little bit. I'm actually going to throw down a Hive right in front of me as a kind of little body block material, just so it body blocks an auto, and then I'm going to be able to get that triple kill. Another little way that you can use that Hive is for a quick, little body block, right? Because it is going to eat 1 auto. I wouldn't say that comes into play a ton. Mostly because you're not going to be usually in that position where it's like 1 auto attack can win the fight. But if you are in that position and you have the Hive up, you can throw down that Hive just to body block an auto and just kind of use it for a little bit of kiting material. Fun fact, you can actually do that with wards as well. Another situation that doesn't come up super often, but when it does, it's pretty hype. You can throw down wards under the enemy towers. Enemy towers will see the wards, obviously, and then if they try to auto attack you and you're behind the ward, because the ward by default pops up, they're actually going to be hitting the ward. Just a little advanced strategy there for you that comes up every once in a while during like a tier 2 dive or something. All right, we had enough money to buy our Wind Demon and our Executioner. And then for our next item, we do something controversial yet brave. And that is going to be, we sell our starter. For me right now, if you are buying the Blue Zone as your starter item, go ahead and sell that in the late game. You don't need it anymore. It has fulfilled its purpose to you by giving you unbelievable early game damage and pressure. At the late stages of the game, I'm going to sell this Blue Zone and get myself a Deathbringer. That Deathbringer is going to make me such more of a formidable opponent, both against the enemy gods, but also against the Fire Giant. And being able to burn down the Fire Giant quick is extremely important this season. Honestly, the Fire Giant is probably tankier than the Titan, but crit really wrecks the fire. So once you get that Deathbringer online and you get all that bonus crit chance with that bonus crit damage, ooh-wee. If you do end up selling boots, / in a mid-season patch meta where there are no boots, I expect there to be 2 changes to the Hunter build upcoming. So let's just kind of talk about the things that could happen to Hunter builds in the upcoming season. Season split. Transcendent is getting a small revert back to the cost that it was. I still think Transcendent is going to be the mostly meta item over Devo Gloves, because I still think that Aussie is going to be the meta healing item, which means that Transcendent is still going to be the meta combo. You're not going to do the Devos into Aussie. Crit is also still going to be meta, so you're still going to want that bonus damage from the Transcendence because it gives you so much power. So I expect we're probably going to see a lot of Transcendence right into Aussies. Also, like I said, Bluestone might be bought a little bit less as you're getting Hunter's Cowl, and you might keep Hunter's Cowl all game long. In which case, this build doesn't actually change at all because you have the extra item slot where you don't have boots, where you would be putting that Deathbringer. In our case for this game, because we do have the item slot filled, when we sell boots, we are going to be grabbing another crit item. I like to choose between the following 2 crit items depending on the game. Poison Star just generically is going to be good because it is going to reduce the enemy's damage output. So this helps you a lot in like a Hunter 1v1, or if the Assassin tries to gank you because you reduce their damage. Or if you think they have a good amount of sustain, you just go ahead and you buy the Shadow Steel Shuriken. The stats on this are actually really good. Don't tell anybody. But it gives 40 power, 15% attack speed, 20% crit, and then enemies hit by your crit strikes have reduced healing. That's obviously good against all healers, but also just generically good in the Hunter 1v1 as well, because it severely reduces the efficacy of that Aussie proc, which basically everybody has right now. So let's get rid of that blue stone. I'm going right into my Deathbringer, gonna do a little sentry ward, rank up my actives, and if the game were to continue to go, I'd get another crit item. This game is probably not gonna go long enough to get that crit item, but in the future, once boots are gone, you're gonna be getting that last item slot a lot more often. Or of course, you have the Hunter's Cow, in which case you just have double lifesteal with that plus the Aussie. That's a lot of lifesteal. The reason why this build is so popular right now, you've probably seen most of the major Hunter players run this build. Aussie procs give you a bunch of lifesteal, and that lifesteal is based right off of your damage that you're doing. It's percently based off of that damage. So if you're critting off a percentage-based heal situation, all of a sudden you're doing stupid amounts of healing, and it's not impossible for you to be healing for multiple hundreds per auto attack, which is just kind of dumb. So that's why this build has really kind of just come into the meta right now. So for the AMC, get all of those hives down, get them into crevices and walls around so they can be easily countered, but also can act as wards for you in the jungle, particularly in the early stages of the game. When you don't have wards out, make sure you're slowing down the enemy with your honey and actually applying the honey damage, because it doesn't do it by itself. It's got to be near a hive or use a 2 or something. And then save that ultimate for when an enemy is at about 50 to 75% health. It'll burst them right down to 25%ish, and then you only need a couple more autos, and they're gonna have to either decide to beads to use a movement ability, or to sit there and panic and die because they're like, what's happening? And then they realize, oh yeah, that's right, AMC ulti cribbles. And that is your AMC B guide. Thank you for supporting the Twitchiest community. If you'd like to see more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and always hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you for all your support and have a Twitchin' day, y'all.